We need to talk about Deuce Knight again because he is number 2 on Andrew Ivan's freaks list. Yeah, that is a quarterback. No signal caller has ever ranked as high as the Auburn commit. He is a back-to-back state champ in the high jump. His vert numbers at the Elite 11 Regional in April would break Anthony Richardson's combine record. Yeah, that's NFL combine. He's doing this in high school. As far as where he stacks up against the other quarterbacks in this class, he is the number 6 QB, 52nd overall prospect. Here is our Tom Lowe with the Tigers quarterback.
We are now joined by top 100 quarterback and now Auburn Tigers signee, Deuce Knight. Deuce, thanks for joining us today, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all for having me.
I've known you a couple years now. You went from an athlete playing quarterback to one of the top signal callers in the country. We talked about this moment over the last couple of years of you getting here. You tear it up as a junior into the offseason. You're a monster 7-on-7 performer. You're Elite 11 finals member. You're going to play in the 2025 Navy All-American Bowl. And you're now today signing with the Auburn Tigers. How does it feel?
Man, it feels great. It's a blessing. It's a long time coming, just being a little kid, dreaming this day when you get to sign your name on them papers to officially be a Division I athlete.
You were once committed to Notre Dame. You had Ole Miss knocking on your door. It could have been Georgia, USC. You could have gone anywhere in the country. In the end, you decided to be an Auburn Tiger. You wanted to play for head coach Hugh Freeze. What tipped the scales for the Tigers?
I feel like I'm a relationship guy. Just coming from a close family, a small city, and Mississippi. A lot of people don't know that, but Coach Hugh Freeze was one of the first offers I had. Coach Freeze was the first head coach that visited me in my high school a long time ago. And then he was the first head coach I talked to when it was time for juniors to be able to talk to coaches. So, relationships, obviously, playing the SEC was a big deal for me. Just being from Mississippi, that's all I've grown up and known. Getting to play for Coach Freeze, like I said, offensive-minded head coach, he's going to put me in position to be successful.
This class headed to play for Auburn in the class of 2025 is absolutely loaded, one of the best in the entire country. How special is this group, and why can Auburn fans expect this group, along with the 24 class, to be what turns everything around for Auburn?
Yeah, it's a different group, just the mindsets of everyone, You got these guys coming from the South, and our mindset, we always been doubted before, so we're just going to be doubted even more at Auburn, and then we're just all dogs. So we're just ready to come in and turn this around. Coach Freeze, he getting all the right guys to do it, and he getting all the right pieces, getting the guys with the right mindsets, the work ethic, and we're ready to do it. We're a real close 25 group, and that's about it.
You put in the work. You spent all the time trying to, be a special talent at this point. You worked with David Morris over at QB Country, but all in all, you didn't get here by yourself. Other people were there along the way to help you get to this moment. Take a second, show some love. Who helped you get here to this moment where you're signing with Auburn?
Yes, sir. Obviously, my parents, growing up, they just made me work. They pushed me, we're not going to settle for being mediocre. And that's something I always known. That's something they always instilled in me. Nothing's going to be given to you. You got to go out and get it. My teammates next, those guys, they push me every day in practice, whether it's the guys that I'm playing with on my side of the ball or the guys that I'm going against on the defense side of the ball. Coaches obviously know those guys. They always push me, just had talks with me, make sure I'm right, make sure I'm good. Even guys, it's going to sound crazy, but a lot of work, a lot of credit to Coach Jim Agadovi, that's my guy. When I was committed to Notre Dame, we had a lot of talks, thought a lot of ball. Even when I was up there in the summer with him, gave a lot of knowledge to me. Then David Morris, man, huge shout out to him. Coach Morris, that's a great guy right there. This offseason, I feel like that's the main reason why I had the off season that I had. That's the main reason I had the off season I had and the senior season I had because of him just paying attention to the small details and trying to help me get better. Just texting me, sending me videos on how I can get better and things like that.
Well, the Auburn Tigers are elated to know that you have signed with the Tigers. They're getting a great one in Deuce Knight. Deuce, thanks for joining us here at 24/7 Sports.
Yes, sir.
quarterback Deuce Knight, the freakiest quarterback according to Andrew Ivins. But as we talked about with Hugh Freeze earlier in the show, there are star prospects on both sides of the ball, led by five-star edge Jared Smith and five-star defensive lineman Malik Autry. But before we move on to some of those defensive stars, let's go back to Deuce Knight. Just what is Auburn getting in him?
Well, I've said it throughout the day. I mean, he's a top-flight athlete. That's why Drew said he's probably the most dynamic athlete at the quarterback position. And he's a lefty, he's a southpaw, and you think about the situation that he's going into at Auburn. We talked to Coach Freeze a little bit earlier in the day and what that's going to look like. And Huff, you asked him the question whether or not they're going to end up taking a transfer portal quarterback. So it's going to be pretty interesting to kind of see how they balance all that because the expectations are so high around Deuce. I think Deuce is one of those guys, the more he plays, the better he gets. I know that sounds simple, but this is a reps guy, and he's got all the physical ability in the world. He needs to play the game. Got hampered with a hamstring a little bit earlier in the year. There's times where he's really flashed, and there's other times where you see he's a little bit incomplete of a prospect. So this is a really delicate situation for Auburn just in terms of how they're going to handle his development, what that really looks like. So they got another guy in that room that is super traitsy as well in Walker White. So they have the talent. It's about how do you kind of bring these guys on in their own time, which makes it tricky. Hugh Freeze needs to win, right? This is a do or die year for Auburn here, and you got a talented quarterback. So how do they balance that with the transfer portal arm, set expectations for the young guys as well? It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze definitely did not rule out taking a transfer portal quarterback. I have to say, though, based on the wide receivers that they have been getting at the high school level, I would love to be a quarterback at Auburn right now with the type of prospects you get to throw to. But you heard Deuce Knight say that Freeze got all the right guys. One of those guys has got to be the top 100 safety, Anquan Fakins.
Yeah, I mean, what a tremendous pickup for him. They got him and they got Eric Winters, a pair of top 100 safeties. And I think what, you look at, we brought it up earlier in the show, with Auburn, we're used to Hugh Freeze recruiting well on the offensive side of the ball, but you go with Smith, you go with Autry, then you get Anquan Figgins and you get Eric Winter. You get the physicality of Figgins, the ability to cover, the ball skills that he has, his ability to break on the ball, to pick off passes, to lock up receivers. And then you go even up front. You got Caleb Falk at linebacker. You got Jordan Crawford on the defensive line. So, the best pass defense is a pass rush. So they've got those guys up front. Now you put in Figgins, you've got Eric Winters back there, and it's going to really help Auburn continue to turn things around. We started to see signs of life a couple weeks ago when they beat Texas A&M. Obviously, the Iron Bowl did not go the way they wanted, but we know Hugh Freeze can attract talent. We know that he can improve a roster pretty quickly, and you're seeing this with another cycle where the recruiting at Auburn is continuing to kind of replenish what maybe was lacking when Brian Harsin was there, what maybe was lacking towards the end of Gus Malzahn's regime there. But Hugh Freeze is definitely getting the right guys. He's definitely getting the bodies. Now, like Coop said, they've got to just follow that up with some wins on Saturday to really get the natives to rest a little bit more. But signing some key players on the defensive side of the ball in a conference like the SEC is huge, and I think it's really good self-scouting and self-awareness to know we got to clean things up defensively and really get some guys that can be impact players. And I think Auburn's got quite a few of those defensively this year.
I'll say this. They had a top 10 class last year. They're going to have a top 5 class more than likely this year. If I was an Auburn fan, I would say, let's take a look at Florida. And let's take a look at a 7-5 season that if you would have told people at the beginning of the year with that schedule, probably the hardest in the country, that Billy Napier would be 7-5 with a franchise quarterback in DJ Lagway that emerged. I think that's it, right? They have done all the right things off the field. And with Florida, I bring them up because they're an example of a team that did all the right things off the field, and it just hadn't shown up yet. And at some point, they trusted the process. They got the right quarterback in there with DJ Lagway. Now you've seen Florida, in a matter of weeks, go from a team that was outside the top 50 in the recruiting rankings now to a potential top 10 class. They've been able to kind of flip their fortune. And if you're Auburn, you got to find a way to string together some wins because the cavalry is coming. I mean, they got some really talented young guys and a lot to be excited about.
Before we move on to the next breakdown, I really want to ask about Alvin Henderson because it was just a few short weeks ago that I was in the studio right next to the one that I'm in now with Andrew Ivins, and we had to break into some Saturday breaking news with Alvin Henderson scoring 10 touchdowns in a high school game. How does that translate to the next level, though?
Well, he's a guy like running back has been a little bit of a thorn in our side in terms of evaluating. You're really evaluating subjectively in terms of the patience, and the vision. It's hard to quantify those things, right? It's easy to say, oh, this guy's a 4.7 guy, maybe he's a 4.3 guy in the short shuttle, whatever it is. Quinshaw Judkins was an 11.44 guy, 100-meter coming out. So if you get involved in that, this game is played between the tackles, that vision, the patience, the burst. Those things are really important. Those are all things that Alvin Henderson has. They're looking for this type of guy that can come in immediately, maybe play off a guy like Jeremiah Cobb, Damari Alston as well. Alvin Henderson, I just got to read this off. Over 10,000 yards rushing,
ridiculous.
122 touchdowns in the last 2 years, 26 100-plus games, and he's averaging 250 yards per game over his career.
That's insane.
It's pretty special, right? So regardless of the level, you're getting a highly productive player at the running back position.
Hope he gets a few ice baths in before he heads to Auburn because, man, that poor kid's got to be tired.